a nightclub. Mark's older brother Eddie still wonders how the shooting was allowed to happen.
The police were expecting trouble that night because it was known to them that the artists that were performing that night, that there were gunshots going off in the audience, like people saluting at the dance, so the police were there.
It was when he was working at his market stall that Eddie learned of his brother's murder.
A friend of mine came up and he said to me, "I've got something to tell you about Mark. He's been shot last night," and he was in tears. And then all of a sudden I just couldn't believe it. I was like, "You're joking, tell me that you're getting me at it," you know, it was like that. And then I just had to get away from the stall as quickly as possible. Mark was a very, very strong individual, stubborn at times, but I mean, generally quite a good-hearted person. He was fearless to a certain degree. He didn't suffer fools gladly. I would say that me and my brother had a bit of a love-hate relationship because we both had different point of views on certain things, but we were close in the sense that he would never let anything happen to me, and I would never let anything happen to him. And I still feel that bond between the two of us.
The hunt for Mark's killer seemed fated from the start. He was shot at this event as Capleton, a top Jamaican DJ, neared the end of his set. Police took the names of 116 potential witnesses. 90% turned out to be false. Not only were many witnesses uncooperative, some had their own agenda.
While he was on the floor, bleeding to death, one of the priorities that his friends seemed to have was taking his jewellery off of him. So while he was there with all those strangers, you know what I mean, slowly dying and looking around and feeling confused and everything else, not really understanding what's happening, not knowing whether he's going to die or not, there are people taking his jewellery off of him.
Some jewellery was returned to Mark's girlfriend, but his family have lost him forever. His murder isn't an isolated case, it's part of a wider problem.
The figures of black victims have gone up steadily over the past 5 or 6 years, from about 12% of the total victims of murder up to around 24% last year. Speaking from my own experience, on the whole, most of the murders which I've either investigated myself or have had some kind of hand or knowledge or awareness in have been committed by other black people, black criminals.
To bring all the rest of the people in the world with England and Britain cause problem and confusion.
It's not just the police who are worried. The growing level of gun violence has become a personal concern for black people who live in the affected areas.
I've got 2 children and, you know, 2 sons, and I don't want them to grow up believing that guns is the way to do it, and that by killing off our one another we're going to get somewhere in life. Because by killing our one another, that's just keeping us on the same level that we are now.
Yeah, because it's not bricks and stones anymore, it's gone. Yeah, it's big change that. I'm gonna do it now, you know? You don't stand a chance to get it gone.
It's because the black children of today don't know where they're coming from. And they're kind of mixed up.
Not necessarily, because they expect us
when
there.
they go to school, they don't learn about black history before
That's quite
slavery. They feel that they don't have any role models or that they can't aspire to certain things.
That's right.
Like the rest of the kids.
No, but then we can't
It's the frustration of that as well, of being born in a community where you feel that you can't get nowhere in life.
You can't prosper.
Unless you're living a life of badness.
Detective Superintendent John Jones has worked in inner-city London for over 20 years. He ran Dale House, an anti-crack operation disbanded last December, and lists more specific causes of the gun problem.
I think really it is this drug crack which brings great rewards for people who are prepared to be violent in order to obtain it and then to sell it. The so-called yardies have got a very strong grip on this particular trade, and one of their own trademarks is their readiness to use violence, and use violence usually against rivals, other criminals.
Yardie means Jamaican, but the media use it as a byword for Jamaica's outlaw gangs. In fact, there is no organised Jamaican mafia.
Most of them aren't too organised. They have a different kind of philosophy, it seems to me. They live for today rather than looking back on yesterday or thinking about tomorrow.
The overcrowded ghettos of Kingston, the Jamaican capital, have spawned many outlaws. In areas like the notorious jungle, mass unemployment and poverty breed violence. Patrick Tucker is a local councillor.
Look around the scene, look at where people live. That's one of the main things, that's frustration. Now, a man who's frustrated, you know, he doesn't care if he lives or dies. It's terrible. You know, it's to get up and you don't have breakfast, you don't have dinner, you don't know where your next meal coming from, and you have kids around your feet. You know, go to your bed hungry. Right? These are things that lead to a lot of violence.
Jamaica has a serious problem with violence. The island's population is under 3 million, but last year 629 people were murdered, only 60 fewer than the whole of Britain. According to Jamaican journalist Lloyd Williams, indiscriminate gun violence plays a major part in the death toll.
If you were to take the 100 most sensational murders over the last 1 year or so, none of them is connected, right? And that is the problem with crime in Jamaica. It's so random, unpredictable, unorganized.
Now gangs are common in the ghetto and guns have become a part of everyday life.
People call I the bad set of man, but naturally there are some good set of man, you know. There are enough good examples we set in here. Like even, you know, no coke-based boat or so. I want to have some guy that bought the place with sell coke and them thing there. Them thing they done, stamp out them thing there. The little petrol rubber and all them kind of thing there. Stamp it out. God is that thing in the ghetto, right? You know, you find one say, it can be good and it can be bad. But many people really want to go danger it and going to fall in the wrong hand, you know? And it's falling in the wrong hand. But enough arms really in the ghetto for sure.
The ghetto you have gun.
Yeah, enough gun in the ghetto for sure.
Every ghetto. Because you find gun in every ghetto.
And even in a ghetto like this, you have to have arms. Because if you don't have arms, they get overchoked. Most of the time when we have violence, refugees come in and try to disorganize, mobilize a little set of man who can take up all arms and say, hey, go do that, go do that, go do that. And stay so like a Dan and money are coming to him from all around us.
Williams has investigated Jamaica's infamous drug-dealing gangs, the posses, and their movement into the United States. Their members are blamed for nearly 5,000 murders there since 1985. Coming from a background where life has little value, posse killings are carried out with little regard for innocent bystanders.
There have been cases in the States, you know, where Jamaican posses have, you know, murdered the adults and left the babies there crawling in the blood, in the victims' blood. You know. And it doesn't matter to them that there are a dozen kids or women in their line of sight, you know. Whereas the mafia, the guy from the mafia, will wait until the Don leaves the restaurant. Jamaican is going to go at the is going to go for the guy at his dining table in the restaurant, and he's going to shoot, and it doesn't matter to him, you know, who gets hit, so long as the guy gets hit too.
Jamaica is a poor country, but only 2 hours' flight from its rich neighbour, the United States. Going abroad to countries like Britain and America is synonymous with money and opportunity. For some, getting involved in the drugs business is the most lucrative option of all.
I know a pastor guy who left here. The guy left here as a construction worker. In September, he got into running his own cocaine operations. And by January of the following year, so you're talking about 3-4 months, he bought a brand new Mercedes-Benz for $40,000 US, right? And he was earning a lot of money. Now, when his friends back in the slums here hear about that, you know, they want to come up. You know, they want to enjoy the good life.
Everything you go on a foreign, the yard man get the blame. As the queen, the Yankee them call up Yardie name. If a man get lick, them say the yard do it. Woman get rape, Yardie life and step. If they find a man dead, a yard man must make them say, yard man they have foreign, I run the place red.
1980s, the trade began to move from America to Britain.
In the United States, you can buy a rock of crack for about a fifth of the price that you can buy it in the United Kingdom. Criminals are there for the money, they're there for greed, they're there for gain. And in a sense, they're entrepreneurs. And they see a market over here where they can get more money for the cocaine. But that's not all. Historically and politically, Jamaica has a very, very close relationship with this country. It used to be a colony, still part of the British Commonwealth. Many Jamaican people and people of Jamaican extraction, decent, hard-working people, live in this country. So Jamaican criminals can come over here and they can hide in that background quite easily.
One Jamaican outlaw living illegally in South London was Christopher Bourne, or Tuffy. He'd been deported from Britain twice and had served 15 years for robbery and firearms offences in Jamaica in the 70s. Tuffy's killing in May was brutal. He was shot dead in the street in broad daylight. His widow, Marcia, still remembers the day she learned of the death of her childhood sweetheart.
When he reached to the hospital, they pronounced him dead. So straight away I asked, how many shots? They said he was riddled in shots from his foot right up to his neck. So I feel gutted. Up until now, I don't want to talk about it.
To the outside world, Tuffy's shooting in Brixton may simply have been the death of another black gangster. But Marcia has suffered the loss of a father to her 9 children.
He was always kind. There was nothing too much for him to have that me or the children did not get, yeah? When he comes home, he's just not a father by name, but a father by nature. Not only to my children, but to many children outside.
What's up with these? Nana. Oh, yeah.
Being indoors with the children, it's sad. I see no one come to my house, no one goes. Just me, my niece, my children, and my niece's friend. Nobody, and it's rough, but I take one day at a time.
Shine a gun, shine a gun. Now it's time for the showdown.
With the right contacts, illegal firearms are now easy to get hold of on the streets of London, and suppliers have no problem keeping up with demand. While his associate assembled a handgun, an underworld operator made it clear that he could supply a wide range of weaponry.
This is a Smith & Wesson 38 calibre. It costs 400 quid. But really, you should have come to about £250, really. You can get a gun on the street for about £250.
We asked what guns were available.
Any gun you would like. Submachine gun, shotgun, 45, whatever gun you would like. You can even get hand grenade out here, believe it or not. Smoke grenade, anything you like. As long as you've got your contacts, you can get it.
All Black also asked what they were used for.
People are buying the guns nowadays. These are crack dealers. And people who serve big quantities of marijuana. And these are sensible people who's buying these guns. They buy them sometimes for growing and protecting themselves from doing their drug dealings and everything else like that. It's been going on for years and years, but it's been really hit on the market now because so much people are just on cocaine nowadays. They're dealing really big in it. And they're making really a lot of money out of it.
Her Majesty's Prison, Belmarsh near Woolwich, where 23-year-old Kelly Gray is serving 45 months for possession of a firearm with intent. A known criminal, the police discovered heroin and a gun when they raided his house.
It was about 7:30 in the morning and I was lying down in my house asleep and I just heard the door go off. Next thing I just saw about 20 police officers in my room. And they said that they've come on a drug search and whilst they were there, they found the firearms there.
Gray was one of the many criminals we spoke to who've had easy access to firearms, which they use to protect their trade. He's typical in his casual attitude to guns.
You see all different price ranges. It depends what you're buying, I suppose. It's like anything. If you're buying clothes, if you want top quality or you want cheap, it depends on the price range, doesn't it?
Not only is there a ready market in firearms, but an unprecedented willingness to use them, which is now affecting a wider black public.
I think the thing that frightens me most about this type of crime, really, is the fact that people are using guns in public places, and sooner or later, innocent people are going to get caught in crossfire. Young girls and young boys going to dances are going to get killed. People driving along in their car are going to get caught by a bullet that's meant for somebody else. It's already happened on a number of occasions where people have been injured or been subject of near misses. I don't want to see anybody dead, but most of all, I don't want to see innocent people dead.
Michael was one of those near misses. A 23-year-old trainee baker. He was at a New Year's Eve party in South London when he was attacked. He got into an argument which nearly ended his life. His identity has been concealed, as he still fears reprisals because he went to the police.
I just heard doors kick open, and I heard someone call my name. I just heard 2 loud bangs, and there was smoke in the air. And my left arm just crossed the left side of my ribs. They shot me with a 12-bore shotgun at point-blank range. I can't really remember what happened. I just remember screaming and the lights all came on. I was too weak to remember anything. After the shooting, I arrived at King's College Hospital, went under emergency operation. My bowels had been blown out. My spleen had been blown apart. 3 ribs were missing. My lungs collapsed. Lost one of my kidneys. Everything went wrong, basically.
Michael's 2 attackers were both teenagers. They're now serving 11 and 12 years for attempted murder. Michael's case may have been resolved, but a disturbing feature of these gun crimes is that an alarming number of them are never solved. 6 months after Mark Burnett's killing, police were no closer to catching the perpetrator. In desperation, the family put up a substantial reward for information, but to no avail.
I feel angry about the response that we got. I can't understand the response that we got because, I mean, if money's so important, then someone should at least want to come forward and pick up £10,000. I mean, £10,000 is a lot of money.
Eddie now works out to vent his frustration over his brother's murder and the community's refusal to help find Mark's killer.
Nobody really wants to be a grass or an informer, but in a case like this, I don't see it as them being a grass or an informer. It's just, I mean, if you've got a rotten apple in your fruit dish, you get rid of the one rotten apple, and then you at least you've got some fresh fruit there.
What do we want? Justice! When do we want it? Now! What do we want? Justice! When do we want it? Now!
Earlier this year, 18-year-old Stephen Lawrence was murdered in a racist attack in South London. Eddie Burnett is dismayed that the response to Stephen's killing is so different to that of his brother.
Stephen Lawrence was killed, and the black community got very, and rightfully so, very much behind the family, very, very, very much behind the family. Mark died, and nobody wanted to know anything about it. They just wanted to keep their mouth shut and wash their hands of it. I don't care. One black life lost in the street is too many, as far as I'm concerned. They've all played a part in killing someone, right? That someone had family, that someone had children. I don't know if the person who shot my brother felt that Mark's family wouldn't care about him, because that isn't so, you know? I believe the black community's let him down by not being able to have the strength to say, well, to all these other people who are in a minority, that we don't want them in our community, and we don't want them destroying our kids, we don't want them doing whatever nonsense and crap they do, drugs, the whole bit, you know, because all they're doing is just ruining generations of young black people.
Tony's life could have been ruined when a party he attended was shattered by violence.
3 fellas approached me, and I was trying to get past them and they wouldn't let me pass. So one of them's pushed me back onto his friend, who's pushed me into the room, and then start firing a gun. I've gone in behind the door and tried to close it a little bit, and he started firing more shots, and I was shot 4 times in my leg. After they had left the party, I was in the room alone and I felt a pain, but I couldn't move. My feet were numb. I felt like the bottom of my heel was hanging off.
In spite of his serious injuries, Tony didn't report the attack to the police.
Police are there to solve those sort of things, but whether they want to or whether they are going to is another matter. I mean, they probably wouldn't be interested.
Even when shootings happen in broad daylight, many people on the street tell the police they saw nothing. We spoke to one person who arrived at the scene of a violent attack in Brixton minutes after the event.
Last week, Monday, at around 2:30 in the afternoon. Sun very hot, lots of people walking about. 2 persons has a disagreement. From what I understand, it's a long-running disagreement. And one stand across the road down at Atlantic Road and has actually fired 3 live rounds of ammunition across the road. Now, anyone could have been killed. Now, lots of persons were there. They all saw when it happened, but no one is willing to go forward and give the police information because everybody is scared of reprisal.
Despite this fear, almost a year and a half after Mark Burnett's murder, it seemed someone was willing to give evidence.
When I heard that someone was arrested, it was brilliant. The police did have a main witness who, before the case came up for committal, went on the missing list like a week before, and he was given assurances, so I was told by the police, and he still felt that he couldn't go through with it, and absconded. It's down to the people who were supposed to give evidence, or the persons supposed to give evidence, and I felt very let down by them. I felt that they had raised my family's hopes, and then, just dashed it.
Give me £250 note like I'm No, I can't do that.
Inspector Dalton McConney is the Community Liaison Officer in Brixton. He believes that relations between the community and the police must change.
I try to get people to understand that they need to help us to deal with crime when there is crime around. They need to have trust in us. They need to understand that if they give us information to deal with these things, that information will be treated properly and sensitively. We need to let people understand that we're not doing it for the benefit of the police service, because we're not. We're doing it for the benefit of the society. The actions of a very small number of our people drags the whole of the black race, the name of the black race, down with them. And that is what I don't particularly want to see.
Musicians see the dancehall shootings, and some, like Tipper Irie, now speak out against the gunplay and popular gun lyrics.
So massive, make a noise for Tipper Irie! Let's hear it! Now massive, you don't have to remember, we don't want to see no black killing black, because when black kill black, white man win. You understand? Alright, back to the case again, back music. Massive, look up your one day, you don't want to go. You want to go, you don't want to go. Look up your one day, you don't want to go. Watch out. Every day they get up and they gun. Put up your one, you want the bad means be done. Every day they get up and they gun. Put up your one, you want the bad means be done. Remember some mistake, remember just some.
We don't really want to deal with no arms house, which is like, badness. And at the end of the day, the message is, we don't want no gunplay, or we don't want no badness. We want love.
A more immediate concern for those affected by gun violence is the need for the black community to change its attitudes and practices.
It can't be allowed to carry on. And the people to do something about it is the black community. If the black community do not focus on it, then no one else is going to care. The police aren't going to knock their heads against a brick wall, keep trying to investigate crimes that happen in the community if black people aren't prepared to help them.
Why take out your frustration on your own brother? Because as far as I'm concerned, these guys are our brothers. We are all one black race.
I feel so angry that another black man shot me.
because we're all equal. And this ain't a black thing or a white thing, but a black man shouldn't do that to his own.
While London's black community keep their silence in the face of black-on-black killings, the police can only hope their new operation will tackle the threat. Black mistrust of the police remains undiminished. Meanwhile, there's little sign that the community is even willing to admit the scale of the problem.
The black race, we are really in a tight position. You have to say it's a mental slavery. Still